In a housing market that's facing some pretty serious headwinds, one company, NVR, just dropped some Q4 results that have a lot of people scratching their heads. Get this, their profits are down, but their new orders are actually up. How on earth is that possible? Well, today we're going to uncover the brilliant and surprisingly simple strategy that's letting them thrive when almost everyone else is struggling. Let's dive in. So this really brings us to the central question of our whole explainer today. In a market that feels like it's sailing directly into a storm, how does one major home builder somehow manage to catch a favorable wind? It's a real mystery, and we're going to unpack it together. All right, so first we've got to set the scene. The current economic environment for anyone building houses is, well, it's a puzzle. The source material actually calls it a headwinds meets crosswinds market, and that's a perfect description for something that's throwing almost everyone for a loop. I mean, just put yourself in the shoes of a potential home buyer for a second. You are getting hit by a perfect storm of pressures. We're talking painfully high mortgage rates. Everything you buy costs more. You might be worried about your job. And then, on top of all that, your property taxes and insurance premiums are shooting up. It's no wonder so many people are hitting the pause button. Okay, so with all that going on, you would absolutely expect NVR's big financial report to reflect all that pain, right? And, at first glance, it does. The top-line numbers tell a story that seems perfectly in line with a market downturn. And there it is, a 20% drop in net income for the full year. That is a big deal, a significant decline, and it confirms that NVR is definitely not immune to what's happening out there. So far, this is the predictable part of the story. Okay, but if we stopped right there, we would completely miss the real story. Because hidden inside these same results is a number that seems to contradict everything we've just seen. Get this, new home orders, actual people signing on the dotted line, increased by 3% in the fourth quarter compared to the year before. So wait a minute, profits are down, but customer demand is actually going up? What is going on here? And that, my friends, brings us to NVR's secret weapon. It is the core strategy that explains this bizarre contradiction and allows them to navigate this market in a way that very, very few of their competitors can. And you don't have to take my word for it. This source article describes NVR's model as, and I'm quoting here, the envy of almost all the rest. That's a pretty powerful statement, right? It suggests they're not just doing things a little differently, they are playing a completely different game. And here is that secret. It's called the land light model. It's so simple, it's brilliant. Instead of buying and holding these massive, super expensive tracts of land for years and years, NVR uses options to control the lots. What that means is they don't have billions of their own dollars tied up in dirt, which gives them this incredible flexibility to pivot on a dime. So let's really break down what this land light approach looks like compared to how most traditional home builders operate. Because the difference is, well, it's night and day. So on the left, you've got your typical builder. Think of them like a giant cargo ship, weighed down by huge amounts of land they own, carrying all this financial risk. They're slow to turn and slow to adapt. Now, on the right, you have NVR. They're like a speedboat. They control land with options, they keep their books clean, and they can react to what the market wants almost instantly. They're just so much more nimble. All right, so that's the theory. But how does the strategic advantage actually show up in those wild Q4 numbers we were looking at? Let's connect the dots between the model and the money. So first off, let's be real. They are feeling the pressure. Their gross margin fell from about 23.5% down to 20%. But here is the absolute key. Because NVR doesn't own the land, they aren't stuck defending these massive sunk costs. This lets them absorb hits. They even walked away from some land deals they didn't like anymore, taking a $35 million hit on deposits, because that's way better than being stuck with unprofitable land for years. A traditional builder just can't make that choice so easily. Now look at this. This is just incredible discipline. This chart shows their overhead costs. That's selling, general, and administrative expenses. Despite all the inflation we're seeing, their spending was essentially flat year over year. I mean, think about that. To have that level of cost control is nearly impossible unless you have their kind of flexible operating model. And the discipline just continues everywhere you look. Their mortgage division, income jumped 24%, acting as a nice financial buffer. A staggering 86% of the people who buy an NVR home also use their mortgage services. And they're still playing the long game, increasing the number of lots they control with options so they are ready to pounce the second the market really turns around. So let's zoom out for a second. Why are we focusing so much on just one company's report? It's because NVR is what's known as a bellwether. Their unique model gives us probably the clearest, least distorted signal of what is really happening with housing demand right now. And this might be the most important takeaway of all. NVR is not immune to the market's problems. We saw that with their drop in profits. What their land-light model gives them, and us, is clarity. It strips away all the noise of land speculation and financial engineering and just shows us the true, unvarnished state of play between buyers and builders. So, for anyone watching this market, NVR's performance basically screams what truly matters right now. It's not about who owns the most land anymore, it's about how fast you can execute, how disciplined you are with your costs, and how nimble you can be to react to a market that changes in the blink of an eye. And that leaves us with one final and I think pretty provocative thought. Because NVR's story is about so much more than just building houses. It forces us all to ask a much bigger question about business strategy in this uncertain economic climate. In today's economy, is owning less the new key to winning more? Something to think about.